Yo, 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 what's going on, everybody? Sorry I'm a bit late. My bad. Still trying to resolve this issue with Twitter, which I'm pretty sure everybody is having at the moment. Some of the stuff, like the links that I have for the show today, were tweets. Haven't been able to access tweets. Makes it a little difficult to show information that you don't have access to because apparently, even though Elon Musk said supposedly he was only retiring from politics, apparently he retired from his actual job as well. So Twitter isn't working, or at least it's only working a little bit, but not working to the degree it should. And actually, it hasn't been working for days now. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, I know. It's a little bit more than suspicious that once this whole situation with Israel has gone down, not just one, but the situation in the West Bank with the diplomats, the Israeli embassy staffers, the announcements from Netanyahu. Obviously, I mean, there's been a lot of stuff going on with Israel. The South African narrative gets debunked in real time in front of the entire world. Trump is getting exposed in a lot of ways. I mean, it's just Elon gets exposed, really exposes himself, and kind of just rage quits politics. And now all of a sudden, Twitter doesn't want to work for now, I would say about 3 to 4 days. It's bizarre, but we're here. Thank God. Like this video, share where you can. I know it's going to be difficult to share where you normally would because of what's going on, but share, like, subscribe. I'm in a good mood today. And by the way, I was going to actually try to stream yesterday. That was my goal, was to stream yesterday, but my baby boy was not having it. When I tell you, y'all, this man, let me make sure my headphones are connected. Okay, cool, we good. But this man, every time I would close my door to start streaming, he starts screaming at the top of his lungs. Y'all know my youngest has always kind of like been like that. He's always been, but now because he's getting older, he's 14 months, about to be 15 months. And now he's getting a little bit more aware. When I close my door at a certain time of the day and everybody else is downstairs and he like sees me like maybe bring up my light or set up my tripod, he's like, oh, you think that you're about to close the door and do a show and have a conversation with other people while I'm not in the room? You gonna give my attention to somebody else? Yeah, I don't think it's gonna go down like that. So he starts screaming at the top of his lungs, and it's like, he's like screaming bloody murder. It's not a normal baby scream. It's, how dare you disrespect the king? That's basically how it goes. So whether or not, sometimes you can't even pick it up on the mic, but I can't even concentrate. So and he knows that. It's like, he's like, yeah, if I keep screaming, you're gonna have to come downstairs. So we gonna get it popping today on a freaking Saturday because he's asleep. We put him down for a nap. So I got like a good hour and a half before he wakes up and starts torturing everybody. Yeah, so we got Jimmy in the chat. What's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in. Like I said, I hope everybody can hear me and see me okay. I got some news, some good news, positive stuff before we get started. As you all know, I had my cell phone taken, had my information stolen, and unfortunately, because of that, I had some money stolen in the most inconvenient of circumstances. I turn to you guys to help out, and I am happy to say that in less than a week, we have already almost reached the goal. We're at $7,125, guys, out of the $10,000 goal that we set. So thank you guys so much for that. If you want to help contribute, the link is in the description. I'll post a link here as well in the chat. You guys have been absolutely amazing. My family really appreciates it. We've made some progress with my banks. Still working on that part, but like I said, we only had my main bank. They were the easiest to work with, but it was because of the way the money was stolen. The other transactions were made from bank account to bank account after they got my personal information, after they stole that information off of my SIM card, even though I blocked my iPhone. Yeah, so like I said before in the other video, y'all, for the love of God, if you can, convert to eSIM and destroy your SIM card. Physical SIM cards are a problem. It's just that phone companies don't actually like to discuss it because they don't want to make it public knowledge that it is possible to hack SIM cards, because then that would be a bigger problem than it already is. So they won't even tell you that it's possible, really. I mean, like, if you press them about it, they'll tell you. But, like, they don't like to make it a big deal, because if people knew, then more people would probably try to scam that way. So once again, just want to say thank you all so much for all the help that you guys have provided so far. Me and my family appreciate it incredibly. Don't even have enough words to really say thank you guys. And all the love and the messages that I've been getting. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You know, we're like I said, we're not where we were, but we are definitely it's looking like things are going to turn out to be okay. I'm gonna put it like that. You know, everything else will resolve itself, but in the immediate future is really what we were worried about with the baby and the move. And that looks like it's going to be resolved. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate you. You can help support in the link, or at that link that I sent, or at the link in the description. Other positive news. Some of you may have heard that we are working on a new show. I will be working with some of the staff from George Galloway's show, actually. And we will be doing a call-in show. It'll be somewhat similar to George's, but it'll be different in a lot of ways, but similar in some ways as well. But it'll be a show that we'll do at the beginning about once a month. It'll be about 2 hours, and half the show will be breakdown analysis. The other half will actually be call-in and interviews. So it'll be once a month for like the first 2 to 3 months, because we have to figure out how we're going to format everything. We want to see what works and what doesn't work, and what you guys like and what you don't like, so we can configure it accordingly. But after that period, we will go to about 2 shows a month. If you guys end up really, really liking the show, we're going to go to once a week. And once out of like every 2 or 3 shows, we're actually going to do straight call-ins, where basically the people who call into the show will get afforded more time to converse with me about whatever issue we're talking about that day. It'll be probably about 45 minutes of me talking about the issues of the day. And then you'll actually be able to call in, converse with me, debate with me, you know, anything like that. And it'll be actually longer conversations, which I'm really excited about. Because to be honest with you, my favorite part about doing this is interacting with people. You know, talking to a camera is cool, but talking to you guys is better. So, Super Seamster Show and Store from Bakersfield, California. Ooh, you gotta get up out of there. California is crazy. With that being said, I do want to go ahead and get this show on the road. We got a lot of stuff to cover, and we're gonna cover as much as we can. Like I said, we got kind of hindered a little bit because the Twitter is glitching out. So we're gonna try to cover everything, and where I can't get it on Twitter, I'll try to find it somewhere else. But we have so many things that happened this week, and I don't even know where to begin. But I guess we can start with this Israeli staffer story. So I'm gonna play the hotspot video I did for it. Then we're gonna dive into it. Hold on, I think I see a super chat before we get. It's a fucked up world we endure. Ain't that the truth? Endure is the best way to put it at this point. We do live in a messed up world. Like I say, I was on Twitter yesterday, and I said, I don't really care what God you believe in, what God you answer to, but I don't know what God would be allowed, what would be, you know, happy to allow genocide deniers into their crib once you pass on to the next life. I don't know which one. Even the devil got to be looking at some of these people sideways, given what they're supporting, because I don't know how you can see parents putting their kids back together, literally trying to hold their kids, 2 parts of their bodies together, because they've been blown apart. And you're like, but do you condemn Hamas? Right? Like, that's just crazy to me. I don't understand. I understand how we got to this point, but we are here. Let's go ahead and bring up this hotspot video that we did. You know, it's just some questions. It's just some questions that I feel like deserve answers. I'm pretty sure you feel the same way. Now listen, no one can say for sure whether or not those 2 Israeli diplomats that were killed in DC was a false flag operation on behalf of Israel or done by Israel. But I'm just gonna say, if there was a country that is capable and likely to do a false flag operation, and if there was a country that has shown a pattern of committing false flag operations, especially in and against the nations who primarily support them, it would be Israel. And this would be the type of false flag operation they would do. So first of all, free Palestine. Secondly, I'm not saying this out of ignorance. I'm saying this out of a pattern of historical context that we have available to us. For example, we have the USS Liberty attack, the OG false flag from Israel, where Israel attacked a U.S. naval ship in the middle of the 6-day war and tried to convince the world that it was Arabs who attacked the United States. Or we can look at the King David Hotel bombing of 1946. And yes, you saw that date correctly. That is July 1946, just a couple of months after Great Britain and the rest of the West handed Palestine over to Israel. Israelis, disguised as Arabs, bombed the King David Hotel, killed a bunch of British citizens, and the goal was to get Great Britain out of Israel while blaming Arabs. Or we can look at Operation Susanna. Now, this was a failed false flag attempt carried out by Israel in Egypt in 1954. In this failed operation, Israel planted bombs in American, British, and Egyptian civilian targets like cinemas, libraries, etc., hoping to undermine American confidence in the Egyptian government. Now, although thankfully this was a failure, the goal was still the same: kill innocent individuals and place blame on somebody else in order for Israel to achieve its desired goals. So what I'm trying to say is that it's important to free Palestine. But in addition to that, Israel has a habit of literally killing people in order to achieve its goals. And it seems like they kill people in their allied nations because their allied nations will protect them and give them cover as they commit these false flag operations. I mean, we're still trying to figure out what that whole dancing Israeli thing is about. If you know, you know, and if you don't know, you should look it up.
And at that point, we were taken for another round of questioning, this time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event.
Secondly, I think the equivalent of saying Hail Hitler or believing in Hitler's ideology would literally be genociding an entire ethnicity or nationality solely because they are said ethnicity or nationality. Like you're doing right now, you psychopathic piece of shit.
Free Palestine is just today's version of Heil Hitler.
But, you know, we're probably going to get the rest of this footage, right? Because this is DC. So the CCTV footage should be all over social media by now, even though we're only seeing the part where the alleged shooter is screaming free Palestine over and over again. I mean, DC might be the most surveilled city in the entire country, so I'm sure by now there's been more footage released, right? Because otherwise people might find it a little bit suspicious that y'all managed to get your hands on a manifesto before y'all managed to get your hands on more footage to confirm that this suspect that is screaming free Palestine did in fact commit the crime you were accusing this individual of committing. So like I said, everybody, there's no way to confirm whether or not this is or is not a false flag operation. But I'm just saying, bruh, y'all not doing a good job of convincing me that it ain't. But who knows? We might never find out. Because like this Mossad agent said during a 60-minute interview, the world is Israel's stage. They're the main actors. We're just here to watch the show. Because that isn't the slightest bit eerie.
We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
So to close, I would like to say free Palestine, free Palestine. I would like an order of free Palestine with a side of free Palestine and make sure that Palestine is free until it's backwards. So yeah, man. Like I said, there just some of the stuff that I presented in that video, like the previous false flag attempts from Israel at convenient times in their history, at really apex or climaxes in their history, what they would consider to be climaxes in their history. It doesn't lend much credence to the idea that a false flag accusation is just merely this cranked up conspiracy theory made up out of nowhere. Like, nah, bro, y'all really have a burden to prove that this was not a false flag operation. And you do that by answering some of these questions that don't really add up. So first, let's do like a little background about what took place, because it's the background alone of the two individuals who were killed in and of itself should raise questions. So let's check out this AP article right quick. Court papers say suspect in embassy killings declared, "I did it for Palestine. I did it for Gaza." Yeah, that's just a really, really convenient ass thing to say, right? Just super convenient. Like I said, it don't start off. The more you do the research, the more you realize, like, man, this looks like somebody playing this. I'm just saying, it looks a little suspect because of headlines like this. Okay, all right. So the man accused of fatally shooting two staff members of the Israeli embassy in Washington outside of the Jewish Museum told police after his arrest, "I did it for Palestine. I did it for Gaza." Federal authorities said Thursday in announcing charges in the killing they called a targeted act of terrorism. Here we go. That T word getting thrown around. Once again, Elias Rodriguez, 31 years old, shouted "Free Palestine" as he was led away after his arrest, according to the charging documents that provided chilling new details of the Wednesday night shootings in the nation's capital that killed an American woman and an Israeli man who had just left an event at the museum. They were set to become engaged. So the reason they know that he said "Free Palestine," just for everybody to know, I'm sure you've already seen the video. There's a video that went around, that went viral, where someone was able to get a photo of this man, or video of this man screaming "Free Palestine." It was like they wanted to make sure they got a video of Elias saying "Free Palestine," and they're responding with, "Oh, from Hamas, whatever." And it's just really bizarre, because really this is the only footage that we have seen released of the incident. Now, I want to be clear about something. This is Washington, D.C. Like I said in the hotspot video, this is one of the most surveilled, if not the most surveilled areas in the entire country, people. There should be footage on footage on footage. And these two individuals that were killed were two of four that were present when Elias Rodriguez, allegedly this guy, showed up, killed those two. He pulled a pistol out of his pocket and killed those two individuals that were allegedly were supposedly set to be engaged. We don't know. I thought the way that the story was being portrayed at first, if you all remember, they made it seem like he killed them in the middle of an engagement. But it wasn't that. It was four people. The two that were a couple that were supposedly meant to be engaged, they were the ones who were killed, and somehow the other two got away. Well, he had two bullets and then ran out. That's just really weird, right? He stopped at the couple. Now, the questions continue to mount. Let's check out the rest of the story. The stunning attack prompted Israeli missions to beef up their security and lower their flags to half staff. It came as Israel pursues another major offensive in the Gaza Strip in the quote-unquote war with Hamas. Not a war, it's a genocide. That has heightened tensions across the Middle East and internationally, and the law enforcement officials have repeatedly warned could inspire violence in the U.S. Rodriguez faces charges of murder of foreign officials and other crimes, and did not enter a plea during a perfunctory court appearance. Additional charges are likely, prosecutors said, as authorities continue to investigate the killings as both a hate crime against the Jewish community and terrorism. Violence against anyone based on their religion is an act of cowardice. It is not an act of a hero, said Janine Pirro, an interim U.S. attorney for the District of Columbia. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, especially in the nation's capital. So before we even get into everything else, we have a bevy of questions right there that need to get addressed. Why is this being considered anti-Semitic? Why are they mentioning religion in this particular case as if it was the motivating factor? Because not one, but both of those victims were Christians. I repeat, not one of the victims. I thought it was just the man, because at first they had confirmation that the male, I guess maybe because he was more of a public figure and had his information widely available, they were confirming that the male, what was his name? Yasin, I think is what his name. Hold on. Yaron. There you go. Yaron. I thought that it was just him who was a Christian. No, both him and Sarah were Christians. They were Christian Zionists. Now, they paint Sarah as an American, and they paint Yaron as an Israeli. Ladies and gentlemen, for all intents and purposes, Yaron is not Israeli. Yaron lived in Israel after he moved there at 16 from Germany. Yaron is German. He is a German Christian. Now, interestingly enough, Yaron came from Jewish he's a descendant of Jewish people, but he's a Christian. He's posted about his Christianity on social media prior to this attack. So why is it that everybody in the Zionist media, or in this particular case, Judge Pirro, going straight to anti-Semitism? They're saying now, conveniently enough, this guy, once again, was able to be put in front of a camera to scream Free Palestine. He wasn't killed, which is bizarre. They exercised violence against peaceful protesters over and over and over again. We've seen it across the country, ladies and gentlemen. But this gentleman was able to, actually what happened was he threw his gun into the bushes after only killing 2 of the 4 individuals without an explanation for why he didn't kill the other 2. He threw his gun to the bushes. He sat down and waited for the police to get there. Even though they have a habit of beating up peaceful protesters, apparently this violent guy, they had enough patience to arrest him without killing him, without perceiving him as a threat. He then, after he throws the gun into the bushes, he actually tells the cop where the murder weapon was. So you hear what I just said, ladies and gentlemen? So he ditched the gun, he threw the gun into the bushes, and then after he turned himself in effectively, he told the cop where the murder weapon was so that the cops could then take the murder weapon in with what I would assume would be his fingerprints. Okay. Now do y'all get why everybody's kind of like, okay, yeah, this is a little bit weird. Right? I feel like the questions are justified. Now, this Elias Rodriguez character, I learned from Sabby Sabs that he was part of PSL for a year. Now, PSL is the organization that was responsible for all those massive protests. This part I didn't know. They were responsible for all those massive pro-Palestine protests at the beginning of all of this. So, how convenient is it that, first of all, it would have been hard to, like, that organization had to come out and be like, yo, this man was part of our organization for a year. And he was part of a chapter of an organization, a small chapter of a much larger organization, and he didn't have a significant role. But somehow they were able to get this information and immediately put it out there in a way that would look like PSL was advocating for the violence that took place. Conveniently, right? The organization responsible for organizing the largest pro-Palestine protests, these people immediately tried to implicate the media, the Zionist media immediately tried to implicate. Huh. You mean right as Israel is announcing that they want to literally wipe out everybody in Gaza now? Like that they want to wipe Gaza out completely. They are very clear about that. They've already really began their offensive. So the organization with the resources, the organizing power to galvanize people, to bring attention to this issue, they've already shown to be effective in the way that they bring attention. You can make an argument that they are directly responsible for how many people finally got to see the truth of who Israel is and what Palestinians in Gaza have been experiencing. You try to link this guy to them after he was only there for a year. And I agree with what some people were saying. I mean, it's very well, it could be true that he was there for a year and he probably was a plan. There's plants in all these organizations. I mean, if you follow me long enough, y'all know that. We've exposed a lot of them. There's plants in the Green parties, plants in, the Democratic Socialist Party of America basically is just a plant organization at this point. But plants, there were plants in Jill Stein's campaign. There were plants in Bernie's campaign both times. I mean, that's how it goes. But this guy gets linked to the organization that literally organized the largest pro-Palestine protests in the country. And then this shooting happens magically right after Israel starts shooting at European and Arab diplomats in the West Bank. Now, they supposedly we're giving warning shots. But like, nah, bro, there's not really any situation where you can justify shooting at diplomats. There's no situation where shooting at diplomats is accepted. And that did dominate the headlines for all of like 5 or 6 hours until this situation happened. And then all the headlines became about the 2 Israeli staffers. And then everything became about anti-Semitism. Even though these Israeli staffers are in fact Christians. But as you go through these articles, you will see that the fact that they are Christian and not Jewish is almost never mentioned. So when you look at the sheer amount of coincidences, and then you look at the inconsistencies in how these situations would have been handled in the past, like, or how a situation like this, like, once again, you threw why did you throw your gun in the bush? Like, you dished your weapon, only to show the cops where the weapon was. Why were you wearing a suit at 9 o'clock at night? Also, Elias Rodriguez is from Chicago, Illinois, ladies and gentlemen. Why the hell was he in DC? And if he traveled for a specific reason to DC, which I guess we'll figure out, how was he able to travel there with a loaded weapon? I mean, there are questions on questions on questions on questions. Like, why we saw the only footage we've seen of him is him screaming "Free Palestine." We don't actually see the shooting or how it went down. The chief of the DC Metro Police came out and explained to us what happened, but you know, we know how that goes. But once again, we're in a situation where all of a sudden the most surveilled city in the country can't show more footage in a situation that everybody is now basically fabricating their own version of a story and spinning it for their own purposes. Come on, bro. Like, we can't get no footage? Like, nothing? Okay, well, explain to us how y'all got this manifesto. Oh, well, some independent journalists managed to get this for us. Oh, and just by coincidence, it's just an anti-Israel manifesto. Y'all managed to get that, huh? It's crazy how bad the cops are at actually finding, like, they got more information about this Elias guy in 24 hours than they got about the people who tried to assassinate Donald Trump twice, the current sitting president, after a whole FBI investigation, y'all. After a months-long FBI investigation, they still didn't get as much information as they've gotten about this guy, Elias Rodriguez, in less than 24 hours. That is just baffling to me. Oh, Crow, thank you very much for the super chat. The lack of intellectual curiosity in these situations is what further provides the potential false flag evidence. Exactly. And it isn't even intellectual curiosity from us. I feel like I said, now this is just speculation. This could be put into the category of the caricature of conspiracy theory, but come on, guys. Everybody starts, like, immediately once the situation goes down, everybody starts asking the questions that should be asked. And then X starts acting ridiculous. I want you all to think about this within the context of what else happened this week that I talked about on Hotspot. You guys remember, you know that Portnov of Ukraine. He's a former Ukrainian politician. He was one of the senior advisors of the president that was overthrowing the 2014 Maidan coup. So he's like one of the guys. He was forced to move around because of threats to his life, eventually ended up in Madrid, okay? This week he was killed by multiple assailants on motorcycles about 20 to 30 minutes after he dropped his kids off at school. They still have no suspects. They still don't know what the motivation was. And to be completely honest, they probably won't know. This guy, like, he was put in the places, like, he was put in Madrid or allowed to go to Madrid, but because his life was under threat and it was known that his life was under threat, they haven't had a single, they can't figure out nothing about nada. Multiple assailants. And this guy is like I won't say a political asset, but he was a political threat to Zelensky. And there were allegedly threats made on his life via Telegram. I mean, there were threats made on him before that, which is why he had to move around. He moved to like 3 or 4 different places before he ended up in Madrid. So y'all can't get nothing about a guy who is literally part of the administration who was overthrown violently. And he was killed in another country, which makes the situation usually a little bit more serious. But somehow y'all managed to get all this information, even a manifesto. It's just so weird how these manifestos, guys, these manifestos keep popping up. Yeah, man. See, what would make this case open and shut? Oh, a manifesto admitting everything. that you intended on doing. And we got it. Come on, bro. So when you look at the USS Liberty false flag attack, the false flag attack, the Operation Susanna, the David King Hotel, I mean, dancing Israelis, like Israel has policy. I mean, the Hannibal Directive is literally a policy to kill their own people. And once again, when Israel generally does commit false flag operations or makes attempts to commit false flag operations, it's usually against their own allies on the soil a lot of the times of their own allies. So given all that information, I think it's perfectly fine that people are wondering what the hell's going on. And is this a false flag operation? Trying to cover up for Israel, trying to distract away from Israel, that will be used to shut down free speech going forward. They will crack down on free speech, not only free speech, but they will crack down even more so on protests. Not like they ain't been cracking heads during protests as it is. They were cracking heads under Biden. They continue to crack heads under Trump. But now, especially with the way they tried to link Elias to this PSO organization, they could just prevent protests altogether. And we know that these type of situations never are limited. Like if they crack down on protests for pro-Palestine organizers, we know that those type of crackdowns are never limited to that one issue, right? Once again, we go back to the pandemic. When they initiated those curfews, they said it was because of what? The BLM protests. Then it went from BLM protests to, oh, well, the pandemic. Actually, it's the pandemic. Hold on, that's not what y'all told us. Also, y'all can't put us on curfew because of a pandemic. Also, there should have never been a curfew to begin with. But there were being curfews implemented across the country, like in certain areas, certain cities, because of what was happening in another state. Oh, this state had some violent protests, and the violence was actually started by the police, but we're not going to get into that. So therefore, we're going to have curfews in our city, so we don't have it. Like, that's not how the First Amendment works, actually. But that is an example of how whenever these crackdowns do happen, it is never limited to one issue. They usually use it to shut down protests or to introduce policies that will affect other issues in the future. And given everything that's going on, we don't know what could be the next major issue. Shit. I'm dead at. We have no idea. Like, there's so much crazy stuff going on right now. Every issue, like everything is on the table. You hear JD Vance the other day talking about, because of China and Russia, we have to now prepare even more and update our stockpile of weapons. Like, why in Iran? He mentioned Iran too, but like, why would you even bring up China and Russia? I have no problem with prepping to defend yourself. That's not my issue. But why would you bring up two specific countries? Because now it went from, oh, look, okay, America's trying to defend itself, right? Preparing for all possibilities. It goes from that to America is threatening two individual nations. They feel threatened by two individual nations. And it sounds like they're subtweeting them. It sounds like you're saying, yeah, we're building these weapons specifically to go after y'all. I mean, look at these. We're going to talk about this in a second too, but look at the way that Trump is trying to shut down Harvard from accepting international students. This, and not just Harvard, he made the announcement about Harvard, but we know it won't stop at Harvard because nothing ever, once again, we see what happened with Columbia. Then they started trying to deport students and arrest students from other universities, right? Stanford, etc. So he's trying to shut down Harvard from accepting international students. Okay. This all started out about Palestine and Israel. But now you're seeing this narrative go around recently that these institutions are becoming CCP propagandist institutions. And that's also why they're shutting down the acceptance of international students. It's like, hold on, I thought this was about pro-Palestine protests, which was wrong to begin with. You shouldn't be penalizing any university for them allowing students to exercise their First Amendment rights. But it went from, no, it's because something Hamas, something terrorist, something Israel has a right to defend itself, to CCP, to Chinese party propaganda. And now that's the problem. It never stops at the one issue. That's why it's so dangerous to see a potential false flag operation unfold in the way that we're seeing it. Because, and I showed the tweet in that video, but if you saw, the news headlines were dominated, guys, by what Israel had done to those diplomats. Luckily, none of them were hurt, but once again, there's no way to justify that. You can't justify shooting at 25 diplomats. There's nothing that you can say. But then, right after, because of what happened to those two young staffers, that's all people have been talking about for the last 2 days. Very interesting. We can let that aside, Luis. Christian 999, thank you very much for the super chat. What's going on, my guy? Yo, Niko, good morning. With this incident, and the Jewish mayor in South Beach is on lockdown. Really? It looked like a war zone. Friend got pulled over 3 times for tent. What? Really? That is not surprising. Bro, y'all know Miami or South Florida in general, it's full of Zionists, like full of Zionists. Actually, I've always found it hilarious because, you know, if you look up a lot of the like mayors and politicians from South Florida, like even in Miami, like you might see the first name or their last name, and the first part of their last name is like Spanish. But like if you actually look up their full last name, it's hyphenated and it's usually a Jewish person. I was like, yo, this is crazy. How did that like but when they're running for office, generally speaking, they don't actually put both of their names. Or at least they don't say both of their names when they're campaigning. But yeah, you can look it up, obviously, and it'll be like something Levin, like Rodriguez Levin. like hold up, what? So even the Hispanic politicians are Jewish, and very specifically Zionists. Come on, y'all. It does become, like I said, like the Mossad agent said. He's like, yeah, we're running the show. We're the main characters. The Mossad agent said it. I'm not saying it. He's saying it. And then the way that the media reacted to all this, guys. Why would the media, like, why would the media keep saying Israeli staffer? Or excuse me, Israel, because they went out of their way to describe Sarah as the American and Yaron as Israeli. That's deliberate. Because if you just describe Sarah as an American Christian, then you can't use anti-Semitism. And if you just say Yaron is a German Christian, you can't use anti-Semitism. So what do? You have to describe both. You say, an American and Israeli, and the use of the term Israeli leads to the assumption that he is Jewish or that he's actually Israeli. He's not Israeli. Okay, Yaron is Israeli in the same way that I'm Brazilian. He might be able to speak Hebrew. I don't even know if he can, but he might be able to speak Hebrew. He might have lived in Israel. He might have a dual citizenship. He probably does. But he ain't Israeli. He's lived in the dude moved there when he was 16. His first language was German. If he did manage to learn Hebrew, which Hebrew is extremely hard to learn, it's like you're not about to like move to Israel and live there on and off for a few years and just and speak Hebrew fluently. It's not gonna happen. So he probably doesn't even speak Hebrew. But like, just because I lived in Brazil for a few years does not make me Brazilian. Like, just because he lived in Israel and served in IDF does not make him Israeli. And it's weird that they didn't put Israeli German, a German Israeli. It's a narrative control issue. And one has to wonder, and would be justified in wondering, why do you all feel the need to control this narrative and play it so close to the vest? And why are y'all navigating this narrative in like through these very narrow holes of perception, like American and Israeli instead of Christian, 2 Christians, 1 American, 1 German? Why I showing the video of Free Palestine over social media, but not the CCTV footage of the actual incident? Because y'all know they love whenever they can actually show somebody who is part of the Free Palestine movement conducting violence. They love showing it. They never fail at an opportunity. They never fail to take an opportunity to show someone from the Free Palestine movement participating in violence. So why now? I'm just saying. Those are questions. I don't got all the answers. But timing is everything. Timing is everything, y'all. I can't stress that enough. Timing is everything. So speaking of timing being everything, Trump decided that he was going to invite the president of South Africa to the White House. I don't know who his advisors are anymore at this point. I feel like someone is literally trying to set him up for failure. I guess that wouldn't be like a far-fetched notion that someone's trying to set the president up for failure. I feel like that's the job of the majority of the staff of the presidency, at least at the highest levels, right? So he thought it was a good idea to bring the president of South Africa to the White House. Now, I do not think it was a good idea for him to go, but he went. And you can see there's Trump there trying to show photos of who he claims to be, or what he claims to be burial sites all over the place of white farmers in South Africa that were killed during this white genocide that never happened. He shows videos of a man who I'll explain who he is, talking about what he would like to do to white farmers. He also shows videos of death and all this other good stuff that supposedly happened, right? Yeah, so I mean, I don't know what else to say but to explain to you all that Trump literally went to social media, basically, or he had his staff members go to social media and literally just got a bunch of shit from social media and was like, yeah, so I was told because of social media that all this is true. So this is why we think there's a white genocide happening in Africa. Look at all these people on social media saying that it's true. That's I don't know how else to put it. Right? Like, I don't know how else you can. He went to social media, looked like he printed that shit off in the moment, like maybe an hour or so beforehand. Didn't think that it would be wise to verify. And the president of South Africa over there, he's smiling and shit. I don't know why the president of South Africa even went. Like I said, that is just, maybe he just like wanted to, it was a power move. Maybe it was a flex. Maybe he wanted to get the cameras onto him and it was like a game theory type of move. He knows that, like, okay, if I go meet Trump there, it'll be all over the news, right? And so what was happening prior to this is that Trump and Elon would make these asinine, insane, inflammatory statements, and all that would get coverage is what they would say, not the response from the South African president. So I'm assuming the reason he went there, it was to get the attention that they got every time they would make one of these statements about this white genocide that literally is not happening. And then he went there with an entire delegation. Once again, my assumption would be because it would be safer to go with an entire delegation than for him to travel with like 1, 2, 3, 4 people, because that room was actually filled with his delegation. So, there are so many layers to this. First of all, there was like Trump. It didn't come up in that clip, but Trump showed this caravan of people traveling, these white South Africans traveling with crosses on their vehicles. And he was saying that those were actually dead bodies. It was a ceremony for dead people. That actually is not true. It was a symbolic ceremony for who they believed had died. There were no actual coffins like full of people. There was there wasn't even actually a dead body for them to like put the names on, like, oh, this is representative of so and so. No, nothing like that. It was a video that had went viral on social media some time back, and Trump thought it was real. Yeah, like I said, it looked like people would set him up for failure. Then, hold on, let me see if I can find the video. One second. There we go. Okay, I was able to find this. Because this is just like what the way people have been trying to defend Trump's obsession with claiming there's a white genocide in South Africa has been hilarious. So in the pictures, Trump's evidence of South Africa white genocide contains images from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Other images displayed by Trump during the meeting with South African presidents Cyril Ramaphosa were false or misleading. The evidence of supposed mass killings of white South Africans presented by Donald Trump in the tense White House meeting on Wednesday were in some cases images from the Democratic Republic of Congo, while footage shown during a meeting was falsely portrayed as depicting burial sites. These are all white farmers that are being buried, said Trump, holding up a printout of an article accompanied by a picture during the contentious Oval Office meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. The picture accompanying the article was in fact a screen grab of a video by Reuters on the 3rd of February and subsequently verified by the news agency's fact-check team, showing humanitarian workers lifting body bags in the Congolese city of Goma. The image was pulled from Reuters footage shot after deadly battles with Rwanda-backed M23 rebels. The White House did not respond to a Reuters request for comment. Y'all, I don't know if this is like funny or incredibly sad, but it's wild to me how you got the audacity to invite this man like you about to own him. Like, yeah, bro, look at all these papers I got. And then everybody, and then another news organization's like, hey, bro, like you got that from us, and that's not what that is. There's not. These are dead bodies from the Congo. Hey, how do you care to respond to that? Since you got, because people out there, boy, y'all saw these influencers, these pro-Trump. I don't know how they're gonna make their money. I don't know how the Laura Loomers and the Ben Shapiro's, all of them, I don't know how they're gonna make their money after the Trump era is done. Cause, bruh, y'all are really trying to stick with this man until the bitter end. And this is where it's leading you. There were people getting so hyped talking about, man, Trump got big balls. Look at the way he's taking it to the South African president, educating him with the facts. There were literally no facts included. There were zero facts. I had somebody respond to me, well, what about the 4,000 farmers that were I'm like, where are you getting this number from? Well, somebody else on Twitter said 4,000, and somebody else on Twitter said that, another number, and somebody else on Twitter confirmed. But okay, did any of y'all actually stop to do your own research to figure out whether that information was true? Because this information has actually been thoroughly debunked multiple times, not just by the current South African administration, but by other countries who've personally gone there and investigated. And then whenever this information gets exposed, nobody's come out. Trump can't even take a question. Yeah, man. So about you literally showing pictures of Congo and pretending in South Africa. You wanna talk about that shit, my guy? You wanna address that? Because that's a problem. Yeah, no, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next thing. So then Trump runs this footage. It's pretty famous footage from around 2023, actually, with a South African politician talking about his feelings, let's just call it that, about the white farmers that own a majority of the land and the wealth in South Africa. Now, I don't know if you all have kind of made this connection yet, and I guess because it's so obvious, no one actually talks about how ridiculous it is. But to be clear, Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of South Africa right now, okay? Malema, his name is Julius Malema. The bald-headed gentleman usually wears a red beret. Let me see if I can find a picture of him. Hold on. I want you all to know this, because I want you all to see him, because y'all will recognize him. So this guy, it's him. Y'all have seen his speeches go viral on social media. This is not the president of South Africa. And I think it's important to mention this because for some reason, every time the actual president of South Africa comes out and mentions, like, there is no genocide going on, we haven't passed there has not been a policy passed that specifically targets white people, that specifically targets their land, or that persecutes them violently or otherwise, or economically in that regard. And every time the South African president responds, they're like, but look at this speech from this guy. And they show this man who is Julius Malema. He is not the president of South Africa. I don't know, like, why do they keep running his speech from 2023 every time the actual South African president responds like, yo, man, like, this isn't happening? Well, then what about this guy and the stuff that he's saying? Okay, so do y'all realize that, like, based on just some of the stuff that Trump or members of his party, like his actual party, have said in the past, other countries would be justified in intervening in the way that Trump is intervening in South Africa? And, like, he's actually the president. And his party, like, it's his actual party making like ludicrous, asinine, outlandish, out-of-pocket statements on a regular basis about other nations. And they're like, yeah, man, but what about this guy who said some shit in 2023? I mean, don't get me wrong, Ramaphosa, like, he's legit. He's the leader of South Africa's economic freedom fighters. And his points are very legitimate. Don't get me wrong, but my point is, why are y'all? So basically, what you're saying is all black South Africans look alike. Is that why y'all can't discern the difference between them? Because I can't be the only one that's seen this online, right? Y'all have seen this, right? Where you explain, like, no, the South African president has made it very clear the legislation that he signed applies to all land for all peoples for public use for the South African government, and actually no land has been taken. And by the way, there was, I wish I could remember his name, but it's a white South African professor, guys. He came out and said that there is no white genocide. And he was like, there's not been any incident where a white landowner's farm was taken by force without compensation, or a white landowner was killed because they were white and it was sanctioned, or an individual was not punished. But he said he can't even think of a person that was killed because they were a white landowner, because they're not that white. Not that farmers have not been killed, but it's actually been more black farmers than white farmers, and has nothing to do with the race as much as it is robberies because of the economic state of South Africa. But nonetheless, why do people keep conflating the actual South African president with Malema? And why is everybody like, why is nobody actually mentioning this? Because Trump did that during that embarrassing ass meeting between the two. He ran a video of Malema, of that speech that he gave that was literally 2 years ago at this point. And he's like, but look at this. Okay, like, what, you want me to show videos of people saying dumb shit? Like, what are you trying to show me? Well, he said things and now people are scared. So you threaten to sanction my entire country because of the things that he said, and because some people on social media said they were scared? Principally Elon Musk. Do you understand how ridiculous that shit sounds? Don't get me wrong, like, okay, he has some political influence, but clearly not enough to move the needle in any direction significantly that would result in land being taken forcibly from white farmers because of them being white and benefiting from the apartheid. Because if that was the case, then white people wouldn't still own like 93% of the wealth in South Africa. So why are you showing a video of this guy just saying some shit that you don't like and pretending like because he said the shit that it's happening? And why does this man keep getting conflated with the president? Like I'm not joking, y'all. He keeps getting, like, people, I can't count how many times on social media people, I'm like, yo, the South African president already made this clear. First of all, he just signed legislation that this all really ignited recently again because Elon Musk said the legislation that South African president signed was racist. But in actuality, it was an anti-apartheid policy that was actually passed by Congress years ago before Ramaphosa was the president. All Ramaphosa did was sign the damn legislation. He didn't even introduce it. He just signing it. And it had nothing to do with race. And nobody's land has been taken since the legislation has been signed. Ramaphosa literally just showed up and was like, okay, well, if y'all pass it and y'all ready for me to sign it, I'll sign it. And somehow, Elon turned it into a conversation about white genocide. And it's like, the audacity of this man. Mr. Apartheid, baby, himself. Coming out and being like, oh my God, it's so racist in South Africa. Oh, you think? Yeah, it's a little racist, but not for the reasons that you're talking about. Mr. Billionaire from a billionaire family? Like, really, dog? And the fact that people actually got behind Elon, bro, that shit really had me down for a little bit. Not because I believe South Africa is really going to suffer because of U.S. foreign policy in that regard, because they already made it clear, like, bro, we don't even get no money from y'all. Y'all send us medicine sometimes, but like, you can get that shit from other places. And also, y'all decided to do that. We didn't ask you for it. But it made me sad because I'm thinking to myself, like, yo, being a dumbass can really get you monetized to such a degree that people will be they just will make public asses of themselves, y'all. Publicly. Without shame. Just because they like, oh man, if Elon retweets me, it makes it all worth it because I can pay my bills this month. Because I can go viral on Twitter, or I can go viral on TikTok, go viral on Instagram. Because there's no way that they did not see the irony in Elon Musk, a fucking apartheid baby, and an undocumented immigrant in the United States, by the way. He was undocumented when he got here. They're like, yeah, man, this apartheid baby is saying that the policy of South Africa is, by reversing apartheid policy, South Africa is being racist. That is absolutely nuts. Old Crow, thank you very much for the super chat. Niko, what is all this talk about South African needing Afrikaner farmers for survival as if they haven't been to... Bro, I don't know. I don't know. I guess it's that same conversation. I don't know if y'all remember the other day when I was streaming, I was talking about this idea that black people, that some people have put out there, that black people can't get reparations unless they have like classes on how to spend their money, as if black people as a whole have this history, in the United States, have this history of not knowing how to accrue and manage their wealth. So I guess it's like this same idea in South Africa, like, oh man, the economy would collapse and they wouldn't know what to do. First of all, those white South African farmers, a lot of them aren't even actually farming shit. I would refer to them as managers of the land. They're like landlords. And they bring on the black South Africans to actually do the farming in a lot of the cases. So to clear that up, I don't know where this idea came from. I guess because they call them white, they say white farmers, but they're really white farmland owners in most cases. But yes, Old Crow, you are correct when you say, motherfucker, most of y'all landowners, quote unquote, farmers, quote unquote, y'all took the land from black farmers. Yeah, I don't know how people keep forgetting that. Like it's weird how they keep forgetting the whole apartheid part of the apartheid. Like they didn't. Y'all think that farmland wasn't being used? No, there are people who literally are alive today that had their farm taken from them, and if it wasn't them, it was like their mom and dad, right? They remember when that farmland was taken from them. There are people who are alive in South Africa today who are working on their farm, their own farm in their name, who had their farmland taken, but that was their skill set, and so they continue to do farm work. I don't know. We got this where people got this idea that, oh man, those poor South Africans, they wouldn't know how to farm a damn thing if those white people didn't show up. What? My answer to that would be like, would white people know how to do shit if they didn't have to go to other countries and other places to, one, invade them, steal their way of life, steal their means of livelihood, claim it for themselves? Because like what happens, a lot of the thing that kind of sucks is like Native Americans, indigenous Africans, whenever these countries, even a lot of Arab, Southeast Asian nations, like a lot of these countries that were actually doing well for themselves in their relative terms, right? They were fulfilling and they were fulfilled in their livelihoods and the way they provided for their families and their society. A lot of them were not prepared for when the Europeans came, mostly Europeans. Yeah, it's usually European. Whenever invaders came, basically, they weren't prepared for them because in their minds, well, we're good. We don't really need to, like, we don't need to steal anybody. They don't have the mindset of invaders. Get what I'm saying? Indigenous people, they might have had territorial beef within a limit because of resources or lack thereof. Right? Which is normal. Territorial within, like, okay, this is like, this is indigenous US. So it would be within miles of each other. Okay. Territorial beef, blah, blah, blah. Makes sense. We're fighting with the same weapons for the most part, same strategies, but we're not trying to invade entire parts of we're not joining up and then invading entire other parts of a nation. Right? We're not traveling across an ocean to go kill people. they did what they needed to do to survive, and that was like where it stopped. They didn't have a mindset of invaders because they didn't need to, because we're fine, we're good, we're good at what we're doing right now. We farm, we have enough to eat. We hunt, we have enough to eat and clothe ourselves, and enough to build shelter. Our society is good. Why do we need to go across the country? Or excuse me, a country, or go across an ocean or a desert to go kill other people and take their shit and take their culture and steal their livelihood? So like, the funny part about these claims that South Africans, indigenous, black people, whatever, would not be self-sufficient is that the reality is our self-sufficiency left us unprepared because we do not carry an invader mindset, for better or for worse. It's like, it sucks because clearly that is the setback, is that you have to now we have to now decolonize our entire race, from black people in the US to Caribbeans to African diaspora, like, because we were colonized by people who had an invader's mindset, because they couldn't grow like you could grow stuff like your agriculture in Europe is nothing like the agriculture in Africa. Natural resources in Europe are not as abundant as the natural resources in Africa, or America for that matter, like all the Americas. They didn't have it like we had it. They didn't have it like Southeast Asia had it. Europe they had an invader's mindset because they didn't have what these other nations had. And these other nations, these other societies had everything they needed for the most part, and didn't have to carry an invader's mindset. So they unfortunately were not prepared when the invaders came. And because it wasn't like they could just text each other on fucking social media whenever invaders did come, like, hey man, you should watch out, there's some people on the way. Like, they were being systematically caught off guard. But like I said, it's because of the mindset. There was no mindset of preparation for invaders that were to come. Because we don't have to invade people. We're good. Why would we even think? Why would we think other? And then think about how you go about your day-to-day business or people in your life. Like, when you always think about things from your own perspective, you're like, why would they do that? I wouldn't do that. That's kind of the problem with all of society. I wouldn't do that, so why would they? But you forget, like, their motivations are different than yours and their circumstances are different than yours. So ultimately, they will likely make a decision that is in their self-interest. You're thinking about the perspective of your self-interest, and maybe the consideration you would have for someone else's, but there's no guarantee that person across from you is going to have that same type of consideration or those same self-interest. So, yeah, it's dumb. Basically is what I'm saying. It's dumb to assume that South Africans wouldn't be able to take care of themselves, because look at Burkina Faso, look at Mali, look at Niger. Yep, they just made their own bank. You know that? They got a bank for development and investments, separate from the IMF, separate from the World Bank. Doing great, by the way. Doing fantastic. So I don't want to look at what's happening, bro. I don't want to hear what they can't get accomplished whenever we're watching it, because the United States is not being allowed to interfere, because the West, because NATO is not being allowed to interfere in those three nations, because of the coalition that they've built, because they did not let the US and the West interfere in that coalition. Look at everything that's being accomplished in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And it ain't stopping no time soon. So y'all can't say Africans are incapable. That's bullshit. In fact, they're more than capable. There would not be so many resources invested into stopping African nations from reaching their potential if Africans were not capable of reaching their potential. David Hundeyin came on the show and was talking about that. They spend so much money to stop Africans from reaching their potential because they know what their potential is. And they know that if left unchecked, Africans would blow. It would be them in China. It would be the African continent in China probably running the show. There's just something culturally engineered into these groups of people, and they're driven in a way that is unique to them. Everybody has like a uniqueness, a unique attribute that they have that maybe the rest of society doesn't have, and that is no different for Africa. They're driven, they're engineering, their ability to engineer that in sports. Sports is crazy for them. They pick up sports so fast with way less access. It's crazy, bro. Watching, like, I always wonder how Brazilians were so good at soccer. And I don't want to hear like, oh yeah, they play soccer all the time. Like, yeah, duh. Okay. But y'all do know, like, it's only money that made like the Premier League, for example, the La Liga, like the best the best football league, the best soccer league in the world until relatively recently was actually Brazil. That's why Pele never left. He never left because why? Why would he leave? One, they didn't let him leave. But two, he didn't want to leave because the best, like, if you could play in Brazil, that's where you were going to play. You had to be one of the guys to play in Brazil. It was money that got in, funny enough, not even direct money from those countries, but foreign money that made the leagues over in Europe better. But it's principally because of the Angolese people from Angola, in Mozambique. If y'all have ever seen people from Angola play soccer, y'all would, it looks like a fucking like witchcraft. I don't know how else to say it, but there's a lot of people from that are of Angolan descent that live in Brazil that there might be one or two generations behind, but Angola gets, if I'm not mistaken, they get automatic citizenship to Brazil. They're one of the Mozambique and Angola because they're part of the like Portuguese colony situation. A lot of the slaves that were brought here were from Angola and Mozambique. And obviously, y'all know Portugal colonized those two countries. But if you've ever watched somebody from Angola play soccer, bruh, it's like watching an N1 mixtape. I mean, I thought I've seen some good soccer players in my life. I've seen some magic. I mean, Ronaldinho is still probably, like, on the actual pitch, the best player that I've ever seen. He's just the most purely talented guy I've ever seen. But then I see a kid from Angola playing in sand and rocks with a ball that's halfway shredded, using 2 sandals as goals. And this kid is going crazy. And I'm like, oh, that's why they're so damn good. Because it's like the tradition that came from Angola. It was like they're importing great soccer players. I mean, I hate to take it there, but like, didn't France get really good at soccer? Like, I'm not gonna say out of nowhere. They've always been really good at soccer, but the French national team did manage to level up quite significantly over the last decade or so. As the team collectively, let's just say they look like they went to the beach and got a tan together. They just went and got tanned together. Nah, but in all seriousness, once the team got mostly African, like, they became one of the best teams in all of soccer. I'm just saying, like, it's not a coincidence. They, which is one of the reasons why Ibrahim Traore is trying to, he's working on initiatives to better the African soccer leagues, in African soccer in general, so that those players will instead choose to play in their home nations instead of playing in the European nations. Like, because if African players actually decide to play for themselves, right, and they could recruit the same coaches and pay them to live there and stay there, dog, oof, eesh, it would get ugly for Europe. It would get real, like, they talk about brain drain when it comes to education, bro. Athletes, if they could actually play in Africa for their home countries, and that's not just even in soccer. Like, there's a lot of sports where they leave because of the opportunity, but they would love to play for their own nations. It's just that they can't, or it isn't worth it, or the incentive to play for the nation that they end up moving to is more. So it's not just whether it be farming, engineering. It's not just that type of stuff. It's like sports, everything. It's just a matter of opportunity. Opportunity given and opportunity taken. Or stolen, rather. Did y'all see this crazy ass story right here? I ain't gonna lie, this is basically some dictatorial shit. And I don't really like to hyperbolize, but I don't really know how to describe this. If y'all can find another word to describe it, please help me out. But Donald Trump made an announcement that he is going to disallow Harvard from accepting international students. Now, luckily, a judge stepped in. This is the background on it. Harvard foreign students face uncertainty as Trump plan to block enrollment is halted for now. A judge has issued a temporary restraining order blocking the Trump administration's plan to strip Harvard University of its ability to enroll foreign students. The ruling came after Harvard filed a lawsuit in the latest escalation of a dispute between the White House and one of America's most prestigious institutions. The university said the administration's decision on Thursday to bar international students was a blatant violation of the law and free speech rights. I mean, amongst other things. The Trump administration says Harvard has not done enough to fight anti-Semitism and change its hiring and admission practices. Allegations that the university has strongly denied. Now, a U.S. District Judge, Allison Burroughs, issued a temporary restraining order in a short ruling issued on Friday. Shout out to Judge Allison Burroughs for doing the right thing. The order pauses a move that the Department of Homeland Security made on Thursday to revoke Harvard's access to Student and Exchange Visitor Program, SEVP, a government database that manages foreign students. The next hearing will occur in 5 days on May 29th in Boston. So, y'all, am I taking it too far by calling it dictatorial? Like outside of the obvious ludicrous nature of the reason for denying all international students, like that's insane. Who are you to tell a university who they can and cannot accept? 2, you are singling out Harvard of all places. Y'all, do y'all know this? Let me see if I can find this one guy. Oh, is Twitter working again? Maybe. I think Twitter might be working again. Because there was one guy he's like one of the Zionist people. I hate responding to Zionist people sometimes, but because what happens is when you respond to a Zionist on Twitter, then your entire fucking TL becomes straight Zionist. Okay, yeah. So I found it. Twitter is temporarily working. So we're going to actually look at this guy's video because this is in response to Trump's decision on Harvard. And it's just ridiculous. This guy is in the hospital and I hope he stays there. Anyway.
Recovering from the kidney donation yesterday, and I've been asked to do some media hits today, which of course I can't as I'm in the hospital. So instead I wanted to make this quick video. 3 weeks ago, the Department of Homeland Security asked Harvard to follow its mandates under federal law and to provide information on their international students on foreign visas who are engaged in illegal activities, to provide insight as to the funding they receive from the Chinese Communist Party, as well as potential allegations that they have resources and.
Okay, what did I say? The excuse first it was pro-Palestine, then it was terror, and then it was they're destroying campuses, it was hiring. Now it's what? Now it's Chinese Communist Party issues. And first of all, because to say that CCP, let's just say the quote unquote CCP provided funding for a student to attend college in the US. That would literally be no different because there's only one party in China. That would be no different than and hell, I guess you could say there's really only one party in the US too. But that wouldn't be any different than the US government providing federal funding for a student to go to school in a foreign country. And that happens all the time. There are scholarships from the federal government to help students go to prestigious universities overseas when the situation is appropriate. And usually if you got into Harvard and you're a student from a foreign nation, that is what most people would consider to be an appropriate situation to help a student attend, because you have to pay, at least for the first couple of years, you're paying that whole bag. There ain't no state discount. You're not going to get a loan from a bank in the US to pay that. Usually, if you're a foreign exchange, or if you're a foreign exchange student, or if you're a foreign student and you want to get into a private university or even a public one, you're paying that shit up front, or you got like 2 payments. They want their money. And so sometimes the government helps, and that would be no different than the federal government helping. If one of our students went to college in another country, which happens all the time. But look at how they move the goalposts, y'all. Now it's about China. It was about Palestine. It was about anti-Semitism. It was about violence on campuses. It was about hiring practices. It was about discrimination. Now it's about China. Well, that goalpost can't move no further.
Programs with the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps.
And now it's about Iran. Look at this. Boy, this motherfucker doing some propaganda. Dog just got a brand new kidney and decided to use his first burst of energy to do straight propaganda. CCP in Iran. What a surprise.
Rather than respond to those accusations and allegations leveled by the Department of Homeland Security, Harvard University said, we're not going to respond to you, and we're certainly not going to cooperate with you. And the Department of Homeland Security said, well, if you're not going to cooperate with us, and if you're not going to fulfill your mandates under federal law and tell us who these international students are, well, then we're not going to allow you to bring international students into your campus at all. Now,
So let me be very clear about something. If you're not going to tell us who these international students are, that would imply these international students are not already registered with the federal government under their student visa. I think all of us know that all of these international students, if they're actively attending any university, but especially Harvard, because it's a private institution, the U.S. government and especially Homeland Security knows exactly who they are. So why is this guy saying, oh yeah, Homeland Security said, even if he got that information from Homeland Security and they're saying that, oh, y'all won't tell us who these students are, that's bullshit. Y'all know who the students are. Y'all have all their information. These students have to give you the information and renew these visas on a regular basis. You don't have to go to Harvard to get the information. So pretending that this is why, because Harvard won't give us the information. So now we're going to restrict them from accepting any international students. Really, guys? Y'all want information that you already got? Come on. If Harvard did deny them information, then it might have been information that they're not allowed to give. That really might be it. So, okay. But
they've said from day one, don't tell Israel not to bomb Hamas. Tell Hamas to surrender and release the hostages. So too, don't tell the Trump administration not to punish Harvard. Tell Harvard to stop discriminating. The pressure needs to be on the perpetrator of the crime and not on the victim who's responding. If you believe that international students should be at Harvard University, then you should be really upset at Harvard University for refusing to cooperate with the federal government.
Do y'all understand the logic that this man is using right now? He says, don't blame Israel for committing a genocide, blame Hamas. Well, by that logic, wouldn't that mean that we shouldn't blame Elias Rodriguez for the crime that he committed the other day with the 2 Israeli staffers? Does that mean we should actually blame all Zionists and principally Israel and I guess the United States government for helping fund the genocide? By this man's logic, isn't that basically what he? Am I misinterpreting that? If my logic does not follow, please feel free to correct me. But isn't that basically what this guy just said? Don't blame the perpetrator of the crime. Blame the reason the person is perpetrating the crime. Which, by the way, is not how law works. It's not how any law that I've ever experienced or worked with works. It's not how it functions, but okay. But logically speaking, that is what he just said, right? Don't blame Israel, blame Hamas for genocide that Israel's committing. Don't blame Trump for passing the policy or trying to pass policy. Blame Harvard for not bending the knee to Trump, whether the request that he's making is legal or illegal. So by that logic, you can't blame Elias Rodriguez for what he allegedly did, right? Because he said he did it because of what Israel's doing in Palestine. So we can blame Israel, right? So instead of blaming all these free Palestine protesters, it's actually appropriate to blame Israel. According to the Zionist fuck right here in the nightgown. Just saying. I don't know. Maybe my logic's off, but that's what it seems like.
Harvard has been trying to have its cake and eat it too.
Also, really quick, I want to go back because he said something about discrimination. What the fuck is he talking about?
Cooperate with the federal government. Harvard has been trying to have international students should be at Harvard University. Then you should be really upset at Harvard University for refusing to cooperate with the federal government. Harvard has been trying to have its cake and eat it too for years. They want full funding from the American taxpayer while also accepting 30% of their students from overseas. They want to discriminate and violate Title VI of the Civil Rights Act while also receiving federal contracts. It doesn't work that way. Harvard is an institution that receives openly and willingly billions of dollars every single year. And if they want that money, then they have to comply with federal law. If they don't want the money, then that's fine. Then they don't have to. The problem is they do want the money. So don't be upset at the Trump administration. Be upset at Harvard for not cooperating.
I'm so confused. Is when he was speaking about discrimination, is he referring like discrimination against who? He's like, yeah, they accept 25 to 35% and 20 to 30% international students. That's not out of the norm for top flight universities. That's pretty standard. And partially, by the way, because they do love the money. Because ain't nobody taking out a loan to pay. Like I said, the majority of foreign students, they're not taking out loans, they paying cash. Their parents or whoever have been saving up money their entire lives and they are paying straight cash, or they got a scholarship, but usually cash to get into those universities. So yeah. So who is Harvard discriminating against? I'm confused. Like, huh? Then he's like, Harvard, they want their cake to eat it too. They want billions of dollars. Yeah, they get billions in endowments. They don't need the government. They don't need the federal government's money. Like, yeah, it's cool, but they've kind of made it clear. Like they said, whenever all this stuff started, I mean, yeah, it's not right what they're doing, but we'll be good. And then Trump started targeting their endowment money, trying to disallow them from receiving endowment money by trying to take away their 501c4 status. So like, even their private means of funding, y'all tried to take away. Claiming that they were breaking laws that they weren't breaking. And what's wild about this shit, because people seem to forget that Harvard was actually, and has been until very, very recently, considered to be a Zionist breeding ground. Harvard's Jewish student population for a long time was anywhere between 20 to 25% of the entire student population, which is wild when you think about it, right? Because he just said that it could be, Harvard's international student population could be anywhere from 20 to 30%, which is true. And then, so 20 to 25% at the same time are Jewish students. But Jewish people are the minority in the country. So they're overrepresented in Harvard. So why would you feel like you're the victim? Why do Zionists feel like they're the victims at Harvard, or that they have been historic victims of Harvard? Shit, Harvard has been used for an intelligence asset breeding ground. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all know Dr. Cornel West. Dr. Cornel West, after working for years, decades at Harvard, Harvard refused to offer him tenure. Do you know why? It's because Dr. West at the time, this is in 2021, had made several comments in support of Palestine. This was before October 7th. And Dr. West, y'all remember Jared Beck, right? Jared H. Beck, one of the co-founders of the DNC fraud lawsuit, one of the lead attorneys of the DNC fraud lawsuit. Dr. West has been at Harvard so long that he gave a lecture to Jared H. Beck while Jared was at Harvard. Jared, look, he ain't old, but he ain't no spring chicken now. Man, he been through, he actually got 2 degrees, if I'm not mistaken, from Harvard and a law degree. So, and worked for another law firm in California before he started his own law firm in Florida with his wife. Like, bro, when I met him, he had probably been like, it had probably been maybe 15 years since he had started college. Maybe 15 to 17 years since he had his first year at college. Okay? Jerry ain't no spring chicken. Cornel West was at Harvard for that long, and they were still denying him tenure because of pro-Palestine comments. But now these Zionists want to come out of here and they want to come out here and pretend like they're victims of some kind. And they've been historic victims of Harvard's admission policies. No, y'all have benefited to an actual disproportionate degree. Because, I mean, let me just do a quick search to verify these numbers. But, so, as of 2020, only 2.4% of the entire United States population, ladies and gentlemen, is reportedly Jewish. But yet, y'all have historically represented 20-25% of the student population at one of the most prestigious universities in the world. Square that circle for me, y'all. Make that math for me. Was that Iran's doing or the CCP's doing? Because I can guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, black people, when it comes to these prestigious universities, and it from any walk of life, it don't matter if you were born in the U.S. or if you're part of the diaspora. In not a single location where you see black people at one of the top 5 universities in the world overrepresented in comparison to our station and our population in the United States. Boy, we would be lucky if we get like half of that percentage. If we reach 5 to 7% at a prestigious university, slow clap. And if you, and like I said, most of the time, like as a person who went to a prestigious university, I went to UNC, and we're more diverse than most universities. And I know because they made efforts to do so. So like legitimate efforts to help people navigate the admissions process from the beginning, like from your freshman year in high school, so that you know what it takes to get into these type of universities. And we had a very low population. Like half of that black population were like Africans. So like, or Caribbeans that came from overseas. So you're complaining after being overly represented at one of the most prestigious universities for years? I guess then, based on his logic, the Chinese Communist Party or Iran has they got something to answer for. Why are so many Zionists overrepresented at Harvard up until this point, right? Because that's basically what the fuck they're saying. Like, I don't get it. Why are you complaining? I can't, y'all. I can't. These people, I guess when you're black and you are part of the population that these same type of people will say that and these Christian Zionists will claim that you always play victim. That's what we've been told forever. You bring up reparations, why y'all keep playing victim? Oh, what about their reparations over there? Like, because, you know, those Zionists, those Israelis, they still get reparations. Well, you're anti-Semitic, because otherwise you wouldn't bring that up. What? Hold up. No. That doesn't make it. Well, no, you know, slavery was so long ago, so it's different. Yeah, but segregation wasn't, motherfucker. Like, what are you talking about? Redlining was not. What are you talking about? It's still happening. Yeah, but you're being a victim. Stop being a victim. Pick yourself up by the bootstraps, guy. And so I guess being part of that race, being part of the race where you're always called the victim for acknowledging literal material facts about the history of how you've been treated. And then seeing these people literally, we're the victim, we're the victim, we're the victim, we're the victim, we're always the victim. Yep, I know we're literally blowing kids to pieces and we're cheering it on. Those kids aren't the victims. We're the victims because they made us have to blow them up. So we're the real victims here. You feel me? Like, it's insanity witnessing this shit. Absolute insanity. Lastly, before we get up out of here, we got to talk about this Piers Morgan thing because, dog. I know some people probably thinking, well, I thought that you would be excited. Or maybe Piers was thinking that. Maybe none of y'all. Absolutely none of y'all, probably. But I'm sure Piers is thinking, yeah, man, okay, so once I say this, everybody's going to like forgive me. Nope. Check out this hotspot video I did talking about it. So after 525,600 minutes, Piers Morgan finally admits that he's been on the wrong side of the genocide argument regarding Israel's actions in Gaza. He said to Mehdi Hassan while he had him on his program that he's resisted going as far as Mehdi and others regarding the genocide happening in Gaza, but he can resist no more. He even mentioned Smotrich in his recent interviews, where he basically spells it out that their plans are to eliminate all Palestinians from Gaza and relocate the ones they don't eliminate.
I have resisted going as far as you have done in your criticism of the Israeli government. I resist no more. I think we've reached common ground about what we view is happening and has been happening through this period of this blockade, which frankly is just starvation of the people there, including so many innocent young women and children. And I think that the incessant bombing and killing, and we don't know how many civilians have been killed, but it is on a daily basis. It looks like hundreds of people every day, with no apparent attempt, it seems to me, to have any real plan for how this ends or what happens when it ends, other than if you look at what Smotrich has been saying, probably the most right-wing member of a very right-wing government, he is talking in a genocidal language about kicking all the Palestinians out. So I think you and I have reached a place in the last few weeks where we are in agreement.
My question to Piers would be, what the fuck are you waiting for? Somebody to slow clap for you? Was you waiting for us to be like, oh man, congratulations, Piers. It's so good to see you on the right side of history. Finally. No, Piers, you've been wrong for like 2 years, and it's very clear that you have been purposefully ignorant. For example, trying to use Smotrich's recent comments as if that was the final nail in the coffin for believing Israel's intention to commit genocide in Gaza. I quite literally do not have enough time to put into this video how many politicians from Israel, from Bibi Netanyahu to Smotrich to every other politician, how many times they've said their intention is to kill everybody and that not a single Palestinian in Gaza is innocent. And when people had brought this up to you in the past, you know what you always said? But do you condemn Hamas?
I'm simply asking, do you unreservedly condemn the slaughter of 216 innocent people? It's one of the reasons why you're not so keen to condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th. because you're fearful of publicly doing that. Are all Palestinians fearful of speaking out against Hamas? Will you now take the opportunity to condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th? Final, I only ask you one more time.
So all it took was one other mainstream media talking on the internet guy who uses Gaza to get views while still propping up the people who have basically enabled Israel to commit this genocide, to go onto your program, the program of another mainstream media talking on the internet guy, so that you could finally admit what we all knew to be true, and so did you? Nah, you don't get no credit for that, bro. Now, when I saw this, I had to go see what Piers Morgan's biggest fan, George Galloway, had to say about this, because of the beef that they've had over this very issue in numerous appearances on Piers' program. And funny enough, I ended up coming across this poll where George asks his audience, is Piers Morgan Israel's useful idiot? And 95% of people said yes. But given the information we know about who owns Piers Morgan, I don't know if we can actually say that he's being holistically a useful idiot for Israel as much as he is being exactly who he's paid to be and saying exactly what he's paid to say. Because just calling him a useful idiot would imply that he doesn't know what he's doing and doesn't know what he has been doing for the last 2 years. But beyond that, during an interview with George Galloway, low-key, the rapper and political commentator reminds us that Piers Morgan's show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Now, ExpressVPN is owned by an Israeli company called Kate Technologies. And Kate Technologies is owned by this man, Israeli billionaire and businessman Teddy Sagi. So like I said, calling Piers Morgan a useful idiot would imply he doesn't know who he's working for, when we all know that's probably not true. But also, let's be honest, next week, depending who's on his show, he'll probably switch it up and sing a different tune like he always does, because it's Piers Morgan. So no, Piers, we're not going to congratulate you just because you finally arrived at the conclusion that there's a genocide being committed in Gaza without a caveat. We're not going to pretend as if you haven't seen the same pictures of dead babies being blown apart that we've seen. We're not going to pretend like you haven't heard 2 years worth of comments from Israeli politicians spelling out their genocidal intentions like we've heard. And we're not going to pretend like we didn't see you ignore many people who've already gone on your program and spelled out the facts for you, while you purposely chose to ignore them. Don't get me wrong, there are some people who genuinely receive new information and change their position based on that new information. But that's not Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan is just Johnny come lately trying to take advantage of the fact that it's becoming more allowable to call this a genocide. And in this particular case, Johnny come lately can go kick rocks. We don't need you. We needed you 2 years ago without all the caveats. Because no, we still don't condemn Hamas for trying to get back the thousands of Palestinian hostages that Israel took long before October 7th and still have long after October 7th. Because according to international law, the oppressed, those who have had their land taken by invaders, those who are being occupied, have the right to fight back. And that has not changed.
So yeah, man. It's just funny to me that he has Mehdi Hassan on. Like I personally, I just want to say, like, I think that was planned. I think that was coordinated. I believe that Mehdi Hassan and Piers Morgan both tried to benefit from Piers' sudden change of heart, because they kind of play similar roles, right? In where they are mainstream media talking heads that kind of pretend to be these now edgy, independent, quote unquote, journalists or commentators that exclusively produce on the internet, because now they're not accepted in the mainstream media apparatus. It's bullshit, right? So I do believe that's court. I mean, it's also Rupert Murdoch pays Piers Morgan's bills. Like, bro, you anything but independent. Like, y'all see how well produced that damn show is? Like, no. I know people who have entire networks behind them that don't have shows as well produced as Piers Morgan's show is. So that money definitely comes from somewhere, and it's from Rupert Murdoch in Israel. So I do believe that was coordinated, and I do believe it was meant to look as if Mehdi Hassan had some type of role and pushing him that way. But in reality, Mehdi Hassan, although he has been for the most part correct in addressing or at least calling out the genocide, like I will give him some credit for that, he has been just as foolhardy and willing to uplift and prop up those responsible for financing and committing the genocide. Like Mehdi Hassan talks out of both sides of his neck all the time. And I feel like people sometimes forget that. And there have been people who have asked him, like he will say, this is absolutely a genocide. Oh, okay, so we shouldn't vote for Kamala nor Trump in this election. Whoa, no, I didn't say that. Got to vote for Kamala. Why? You just said that we should, anybody who is responsible for participating in genocide, you said we should condemn. Right? So he even, at some point, called out Biden. Okay, so why should we vote for Kamala? And by the way, y'all remember, I'm sure people who were watching the show for a long time remember, I was like, yeah, Mehdi is saying all this shit right now, and the moment they announced Kamala, because we all knew that was coming, the moment they announced Kamala, all of a sudden he's going to forget that genocide talk and say we should vote for Kamala. And that's exactly what he did. But in the same way, I don't give Mehdi Hassan, like, I'm not going to keep giving him all this credit for being consistently anti-genocide, because he's not, because he literally tells us to prop up the individuals who help commit the genocide, promise to continue it. I'm not going to give Piers Morgan no damn credit for finally being willing to say, oh, wow, it turns out Israel is killing tens of thousands of innocent people. And that was their intention. And they do plan on moving millions of innocent Palestinians out of Gaza. Because people got to remember, when we're talking about genocide, it isn't just the amount of people you've killed. It isn't even just about killing people. If your intention is to displace them en masse, that constitutes a genocide. But like I said, Piers bringing up Smoldrick's comments an intention to relocate them. And then obviously we know Trump has also talked about relocating them to Libya recently, which is fucking ridiculous. This isn't the first time they brought this up. Did not Bibi Netanyahu come out and say, and also a leaked intelligent document come out from Israel, come out and say they intended on moving those Palestinians to Egypt? Didn't Bibi Netanyahu come out and say, yeah, we're trying to work with the Egyptian government to have that happen, to move 2 million Palestinians to camps in Egypt? Was it not? Like, didn't we all hear that? And hasn't Piers been reminded of that over and over? I mean, he's had Brianna Joy Gray on. He's had obviously George Galloway on. He's had even Hassan, who I'm not fond of, but Hassan, Anna Kasparian, who I'm also not fond of. Like, the people who get damn near every other issue of importance when it comes to foreign policy wrong. They all managed to get this one thing right. They've all educated you at length with facts. You have an entire team of people, plus the information others have provided to you. And you've had this available to you for years, bro. And I remember when George Galloway went on to explain to him, like, basically, yeah, like, for some reason, Israel moved the festival that was supposed to be happening in another area to the area that was attacked. And whenever they were privy to the possibility of the attack, they were told to not move the festival, and they delayed in their arrival. And like, George breaking down all this, other people have broken this down to him as well. And he's like, yeah, like it doesn't matter. It's still Hamas's fault that Israel is now genociding people. I can't give you credit for finally accepting a truth that everyone, like, you're accepting this truth not because of new facts that are introduced to you, but because of the same facts that you have been aware of for years. Now, years, bro. And now you're like, now these facts are worth believing. I don't know what's changed in the last 2 or 3 days, but these same facts that I was aware of, these same facts that I was aware of for at least 2 years. Now I believe that maybe they might be true. Maybe I've been on the wrong side of this argument the entire time. And although I couldn't see it before, I am seeing it now, Mitty. I am. Okay, well, what's changed? Because if you're going to tell me that you've literally, like, I mean, once again, we've all seen the numbers. We've seen the ICC stuff. We've seen the UN stuff. We've seen the investigations. We've seen, I mean, I don't know how much information we've seen. You've seen it too. I don't know. We've been inundated with all of the I mean, just the horrific images, the horrific videos. We've been suffocated by them on social media because there are so many. We've seen the speeches from BB, from Smoldrick, from other people. It got so bad that even Israeli politicians came out like, yo, man, I'm pretty right wing and I don't even like Palestine, but this is getting crazy. Even they were acknowledging it was a genocide. And you're like, now I want to give them, now I actually think it's a genocide. Okay. We want a fucking cookie? No, Piers. You don't get to show up 2 years later and pretend like, oh, now I get it. And to be completely honest, I don't even believe this will be consistent. I believe in a week or so, he'll change his mind again. Christian, thank you very much for the super chat. Yo, Niko, it was hilarious hearing George Galloway call General Langley a house Negro. I just remember that. Actually, that was pretty funny. It's also because it's true. It's also the first time I've ever heard anyone call anyone a house Negro in a British accent or a Scottish accent in this particular case. So that was actually pretty funny. But also, yes, Langley is one. That boy is all up in the house. Not the cool kind of like house like Niko House. He's in the other house. He's in the house in Candyland with Samuel L. Jackson. Monsieur Candy. No, don't speak French to him. It embarrasses him. Ooh. But in all seriousness, yo, I will never, like, I'm not gonna give Mehdi, like, I'm damn sure not gonna get, I don't know if y'all have seen on Twitter, like, Mehdi kind of trying to take credit for it, and he got like a lot of retweets and shit like that, and I believe that was a goal. I think that was an attempt to boost Mehdi. It definitely, I think Piers is trying to toe a line. He's been doing this for 2 years, I would say, because at first he was fully in the, this is only Israel defending himself. He was fully in that camp. Then he began saying, okay, they're doing some stuff that isn't right. But also, do you condemn Hamas at least? Right? And he told that line for about a good 7 to 8 months. So now he's trying to toe the new line. Okay, I can acknowledge it's a genocide and I won't bring up Hamas necessarily right now. But it's like, because I don't know. Once again, it's not like, this isn't new, I guess I should say. It isn't new for the Israeli government to say that they want to eliminate all of Palestine, to eliminate all of Gaza. Like, they've been saying it. So it's just, I guess, because they've introduced an official plan and they've denied all ceasefire attempts. I don't know. I guess that might be like, but I didn't hear anything that should have uniquely affected the thought process. All I hear is opportunism, and algorithms. But I do categorically reject the idea that Piers Morgan is a useful idiot, with all due respect. Well, he can be in other topics, but in the issue of Israel and Palestine, he wasn't a useful idiot. He's an idiot. He is useful, but he wasn't being a useful idiot. He knew exactly what he was doing. He was doing what he was paid to do. Yes, Piers is a dumbass. But I do not accept that his ignorance was unintentional. Nor do I accept that his revelation is genuine. He had already made this revelation and his ignorance was paid for. That's just the facts. This man is just known for having so many people on his program, guys. Like, he has had so many people over the last, that's the whole point of his show. That's the whole point of his show, is to have a bunch of people get on and talk, and you could go back and end it, because that's what I do. If I have somebody on my show and I'm debating with somebody, or if I've been part of a group debate and somebody says something I haven't heard before, or that I'm unfamiliar with, or that disagrees with my point or contradicts my point, I go look it up. And I have far less free time than Piers Morgan has. and way less help. I still can go verify simple facts. So if you're gonna have hour-long debates with George Galloway or have on Breonna Joy Gray or whoever, and talk like you are the authority on an issue, wouldn't it behoove you to go and confirm what you're saying or what the other person is saying? And he probably has, because he pulls facts out of his ass all the time. Sometimes his facts aren't real, so there's that. But he pulls facts out of his ass all the time, or pulls up information out of his ass all the time about the things that he looks up to try to contradict the other person's point. So I know that you look this stuff up. Swaying the information that you are choosing to acknowledge or choosing to ignore is, once again, a choice. Like, it's a choice that you are making and that you have made. You've had way too many opportunities. Way too many. Sorry, bro. You're not welcome on this side. Go ahead, keep reporting. Like, it's cool if you want to keep actually reporting what's happening in Gaza. If you want to tell the truth. If you want to do your job as a journalist. I'm not going to be mad at it, right? Like, but I'm not going to give you credit for it. I'm not going to consider you like an authority on this issue. I'm not going to be like, oh, man, look at Piers, man. There's a stalwart, steadfast voice in the pro-Palestine movement. No. I'm not giving you that. No one else should either. There's no credit to be given. There's questions to be answered. What the fuck took you so long? Being the first one. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that being said, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of For the People podcast. Like I said, if you want to help out the House family, you can go to that link in the description for Give, Send, Go. I'll put it in the chat again. We are almost to our goal. I can't believe that it took less than a week to get to that goal. But we haven't reached it yet, but we're 7,125. Like I said, if we can hit that goal next week, that would be freaking amazing, guys. But outside of that, you can support the show by becoming a member of Patreon, becoming a premium subscriber on YouTube, obviously sharing all that good stuff, sharing the show, subscribing, like, go back to the show after, by the way, and leave some comments. Helps us in the algorithm. I know every day is a struggle against the algorithm. Every day. We'll have video get thousands and thousands of views only for them to censor the next video. It's part of the game. We're used to it by now. We work with what we got, right? So, but we stay alive because of you guys. So any way you guys support always helps. Follow me on Twitter at Real Niko House. Niko with a K, for the love of God, not a C. Niko with a K, at Real Niko House on Twitter, at Real Niko House on Instagram. And at Real Niko House on TikTok if I should ever get back there. And of course, subscribe to my Telegram. I'm trying to resolve that issue, by the way, right now with my Telegram. I haven't been posting on Telegram consistently because I don't have my number connected to Telegram. And so I can't post from my phone, for those of you who are curious, because my phone was stolen because of everything I talked about before. So I'm trying to resolve that issue. Hopefully we'll get resolved today or on Monday. So, but make sure y'all follow on Telegram because usually that is where I post updates and things like that, breaking news, content updates, things like that. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment, special Saturday segment of For the People podcast. Like, share, subscribe, but always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.